Welcome to an emergency podcast that I wish I didn't have to make, but some breaking news as the NFL has wanted to do some news dumping on Friday morning here in Detroit Lions land. 4 Detroit Lions, including Jameson Williams, suspended because of gambling. We'll get into the details in a minute. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I am the producer over at Pride of Detroit. With me to discuss this topic is I'm not used to introducing you, Chris. The host of the POD cast, audio extraordinaire, Chris Perfett is here at Chris Perfett on
Hello.
Twitter. How you doing, man?
Yeah, we'll workshop it a little bit more. Who knows? I'm just a guy, just a kid from Toledo.
There you go, the kid from Toledo. As well with us, managing editor of Pride of Detroit, Eric Schlitt on Twitter. Eric Schlitt is here. Eric, wish we'd be
Hi guys.
meeting under better circumstances here.
Yeah, yeah, certainly.
Well, let me get right to it. The news, as I presume most of you have already heard by this point, 4 Detroit Lions have been suspended for gambling. 2 of them, CJ Moore and Quintus Cephas, were found for gambling on NFL games. They've been suspended indefinitely and released immediately by the Detroit Lions. So CJ Moore, Quintus Cephas, no longer a Detroit Lion, suspended indefinitely. Perhaps the bigger news here, though, is that Jameson Williams, obviously last year's first-round pick, and Stanley Berryhill given 6-game suspensions for gambling on an NFL facility, which could mean a myriad of things, but not on an NFL game, on a non-NFL game, I guess. So those players have not been released by the team, but they are going to miss 6 games. I don't believe this is something that could be reversed or lessened. The other minor note to mention here is that those players are permitted to partake in off-season programs. So Jameson Williams will be there at OTAs, he'll be there at minicamp, he'll be there at training camp, he'll be in the preseason games. He might play in the preseason games. They'll also allow him a 3-week period to ramp up in the middle of that 6-week suspension, so that he'll be ready to go in game 6. But obviously, devastating news here. Jameson Williams, a guy who has been under a microscope really since he's been here in Detroit, and has his first real big slip up here that's going to cost him at least a third of the season here. First reactions. We'll go to you first, Eric.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think we have clarity on if they can appeal. I think the bylaws maybe might let them, but I don't think the chances of that happening or anything getting lessened is going to come to fruition here. The last player that they suspended for gambling on NFL games, he was gone at least a year, right?
Yeah,
was
Calvin Ridley. Calvin
right?
Ridley was gone for a long time. Yeah.
The last Lion to bet on NFL games was Alex Karras, right? And he got exited from the league, and it's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame, it seems like. So it's a rare occurrence, but an all too common occurrence, I guess, with the availability of these betting apps and just the nuances of what goes into how the NFL sponsors its events and whatnot. But regardless, the NFL does a yearly seminar with all NFL teams, all NFL employees, and all NFL players. And they are told if they're going to gamble, it can't be on facility. And you can't bet on NFL games under any circumstance.
Right.
And they know this. They're told this. The rookies if you're curious, did J-Mo know the rules? He knew the rules. He had to. If he didn't, it's his own fault because he wasn't paying attention. So they know what they're supposed to do. They know what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. It's given to them by not just the team, the league.
Yeah.
And they violated that. And so they're going to pay the consequences for it. And it's a sad, unfortunate truth. And we can talk about the
ethics of the rule.
The ethics, yeah, certainly. But the bottom line is, it's a rule. We know it's a rule. They know it's a rule. They can gamble, but not on property, and they can't bet on NFL games. And so 4 players, from what we're told, other staff members within the building as well were let go. Yep. Per source inside the building. And it's a bad situation all around, but honestly, there's really not an excuse for it as far as a rules violation.
Yeah, I think Jameson Williams, it should be clear, I do not believe he was found. The reason why his suspension isn't for longer is he was not found to be gambling on NFL games. I believe the word was college games, but I mean, again,
It wasn't, to be clear, it didn't say any specific. It
it
just said
didn't
non-NFL
yeah,
games.
okay.
It doesn't know
But
if it's college or what.
yeah, it
could be tennis,
the
like,
line,
you know.
the line blurs quite a bit too, because like from what we understand, a lot of it was taking place over the phone, as it want to do. You mentioned that there are personnel in the Lions organization as well who were gambling.
Yeah.
From all intents and purposes. Like, we need to be clear on what it was. It was basically its friends gambling on games on their phone, like in literally every other walk of life. There's nothing nefarious in this. I mean, although granted, the NFL says no, inside knowledge was used on their games to gain an edge on this, which is what the NFL is going to say regardless, just because the sheer panic of their players gambling on their own games is enough to like send everything into a spiral. I have my own thoughts that I'm going to hold off for a second on just the hypocrisy of all of this, when players literally walk out and the first thing they see is a luxury club with the words Bet MGM on it. But yeah, no, like, this is something you should have drilled into their head. And all I can think about is that because the casual nature of the gambling on the phone, because the fact that, you've got other employees who you're just kind of gambling with casually and just talking about, and the fact that it's on your phone, I don't think anyone really understood what they were doing like was wrong, or they just forgot about it, or they just thought that because of legalization in Michigan, a lot of the rules just didn't apply.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think that's important to point out. Like,
so casual to
right.
bet these days. It's so damn casual. Just place a bet on your phone.
And you're right. Like, this doesn't make it so like these people aren't bad people, right? They're not necessarily
no. This is not
wrong
Alex
in what they did. But listen, this is a wake up call that clearly the Lions needed, because either they were being too casual or the people in the building didn't know these rules well enough. A lot of people just got fired or suspended in this Lions organization, which shows that this is an organizational issue. This is a message that was not received well enough by not just 4 players, but several employees in the building. That is a leadership issue. I know we are quick to crown Sheila Hamp, quick to crown Brad Holmes as these guys who've been building this great thing, and they have, but this was something that they whiffed on. And listen, again, doesn't mean they're horrible at their jobs. It just means when it comes to this particular issue, which the NFL is really trying to crack down on, while yes, at the same time taking handful of money from these betting organizations, they whiffed on this one. They whiffed bad, and it cost a lot of good people, good players, their job. And so it's frustrating. You hope that this is truly a wake-up call, and you sure as hell know that Dan Campbell's going to use this as a learning experience, and you hope to hell it's going to get received this time, because I think the Lions were almost lucky that they went relatively unscathed when it comes to these players, because they were a pretty darn good team with basically out all of these 4 players last year. So hopefully they'll be able to weather the storm again.
Yeah, and to be clear too, like, practice facilities. That's where a lot of the training facilities. This is where allegedly a lot of the gambling went down on phones and on mobile apps. So maybe it was unclear about that, but I kind of agree that there is kind of, this, whatever it wasn't clear. And I do kind of think a little bit harder as we think back to Brad Holmes talking about Jameson Williams back in March about do his part and make sure everything, the accountability factor he brought up.
Yeah.
And this is going to put more stress on that, as Jameson Williams is now slated to miss, what is it, Eric, like 17? No, I mean, through his first 2 seasons, how many games is he basically going to miss? Like 13, 17, something like that?
It's man, you have to feel like there's a level of frustration as a fan that goes into this, right? And like, I think Jameson is a 22-year-old kid who just can't seem to get out of his own way right now. I know I do think he's being criticized for stuff that maybe he shouldn't be, but this isn't going to help his cause, right? The whole, was he was he working out with the team? Was he not working out? Like, I think that's malarkey. But like, this is a legitimate
mistake,
bad decision. Mm-hmm. It's a look, and he's 22, and we all make bad decisions when we're 22. But like, this is stuff he should know.
Yep.
And so you're disappointed because like he's going to be the face of this because he's the most high profile name, and he's the one that's going to take the most heat. Go ahead.
So Jameson Williams' agency did release a statement right now, and I'll just read it live really quick. Says Jameson takes full responsibility for his action and is very apologetic to the NFL, his teammates, and the fans in city of Detroit. However, it is important to note that Jameson's violation was not for betting on football, but rather due to a technical rule regarding the actual location in which the online bet was placed and which would otherwise be allowed by the NFL outside of the club's facility. Jameson would never intentionally jeopardize the integrity of the game he loves so much and looks forward to getting back to his team as soon as possible. So basically just reiterating that he placed a legal bet in an illegal spot, essentially. He was not betting on the NFL, which is its own moral dilemma, but yeah, still illegal by the NFL standards.
Yeah, still legal across the board for any betting, yeah.
And he's gonna be the one that catches the most blame here, even if he's the one that's the least culpable. Even if it was I made a bet from the parking lot instead of like outside of off property. Even if it's as simple as that,
and not on an NFL game too. Yeah, not on an NFL game.
He's still the one that's going to catch the most heat here, and it's just part of the nuance that comes with being a high profile player, is you're held to a higher level of a higher standard, and you're under the microscope more. And for a player who the Lions traded up for, that didn't play half his games as a rookie, like, people are looking for reasons to be frustrated with him. And so it's a disappointing outcome here, because I think from what we've talked to, he's a good kid,
right?
And he seems to have a bright future, but he's under the microscope, and a lot of the decisions are being scrutinized heavily right now.
And I would say, like, the fact that so many other people were guilty of this exact same thing and aren't going to be like, that's proof that this isn't necessarily an image. I mean, listen, I've been one to say that JMO is immature, sure, but it hasn't gotten him into trouble yet. Well, now it has, but at the same time, a lot of other people in this organization who you may view as more like CJ Moore is an outstanding good character guy. He clearly made a humongous, like, I am shocked that he made this mistake, right?
Me too. Me too. And I mean, look, the Lions signed him to a 2-year deal. Like, they had long-term hopes for him, right?
Yeah. And so to just blame this on the immaturity of a guy that you think is an idiot or is a kid that'll never get it. CJ Moore had his act together and did something like this, and actually worse than this, like, took it a step further and made a mistake. So I'm not trying to let Jameson Williams off the hook for this. He still made a decision that he shouldn't have made, but at the same time, people that are just going to look for more and more reasons to hate this kid, just take a further picture of this. And a lot of people are getting mixed up in this, either because the rules aren't clear, because the Lions maybe didn't make this clear enough how important and how easy it is to get hooked into this. There's a lot of finger pointing that's going to be happening, and it's a mess. It's just a mess.
It's the casualness of this. And I don't think this is the first or the last. I mean, excuse me. I don't think this is the last suspension we're going to see this year for guys gambling around the NFL. In the case of Jameson Williams, he's a kid who went to high school in Missouri, played college ball in Alabama and is now in a state for the first time in his life where gambling is legal. And from all intents and purposes, it sounded like there was a lot of guys at his workplace who were just casually gambling. And maybe he just thought, like, again, I don't know if he was gambling while he was rehabbing or anything else, but again, he thought somewhere along the line he might have been in the clear. And again, that's the danger of just how casual it is. And I'm sure that the Lions, and again, a Commanders player got suspended as well today. Yep. I forget his name. He was a defensive end, Shaka Toney, suspended. He's suspended indefinitely along with Cephas and Moore for gambling on NFL games. So like, this is going to keep happening across the league. The Lions have a chance here being the first ones this year to really get pinged by this I would say a good number of their players and personnel gambling. Like you got to pick this up real quick and really hammer it down, because I don't think this is the last time we're going to see this at all. Like you've got a chance at the very least, like, to get out in front of this and stop this from happening again, because just the sheer casual nature of it, combined with how many mixed signals the league sends and how much money they take from gambling partners and how much they slap BetMGM and DraftKings and Caesars across all their products as you're going to walk out of the tunnel in Las Vegas or in any state where it's legal to gamble. Like, these players are going to keep getting the mixed signals about the gambling itself that you just like, yeah, again, going back to the leadership, this is something that absolutely needs to be hammered home. And you have to let them know, yeah, the league is being bloody hypocritical about all of this. And we can talk about how much it undermines the game, having players gambling on stuff. But at the same time, the league's going to keep taking money from these casinos. And you just really have to let them know the league's not going to be as forgiving to you. They are not going to be as forgiving to you. And we can't jeopardize our season just because there is a mad gold rush for casino money right now.
But I think the cavalier nature of the betting is why you're seeing maybe what some would consider a harsher punishment, because I think the league is trying to say, these are our rules and you need to know them, and then we're going to follow them. And this should, like Jeremy said, it should be a wake-up call. And if the year suspension to Ridley wasn't enough, then they're going to make sure that this one hits home, right? So
yeah,
there's go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say, you have to wonder if like every team is going to have this wake-up call too, because now it's two very high-profile players in Calvin Ridley and Jameson Williams who've been smacked by this, but maybe it just doesn't hit home if it's not literally in your backyard like it now is with the Lions, and because it's so easy to gamble on sports, and because it's so ingrained into the broadcast of sports now. That gambling is right there on, like, you enter the third quarter, here are the odds that each team is going to win, right there on your broadcast. Like, it's just so casual, and it just feels like part of the game that I could understand why someone does it without even thinking twice about it. Like, sitting in the hot tub at the facility, like, watching this NBA playoff game.
And again, it's the number of
not Kobe.
It's the number of players and team personnel who are gambling too. You're also going to get workplace, I won't call it peer pressure, but you're going to see others at your workplace, much as you would at any other job, talking about gambling openly now because they've got their phones and they are allowed to do it in the state of Michigan. Like, I mean, hell, even I live in California, and I go to places at work where it's not totally legal here, but people still talk about it incredibly casually about how they had a parlay out on the NBA games last night. It is now ingrained into our very culture. It is a very casual thing that shows up at workplaces. And that's kind of what I take from this, with how many players that's what sets this thing with the Lions apart from Calvin Ridley. It's not one guy, it's 4 players, and it's team personnel. I mean, and it sounds like everyone was just kind of being really chill and casual about it.
It doesn't matter though.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. At the end of the day, look, every workplace has a different set of rules. Like a bank is going to have a different set of rules than a laundromat, and the NFL rules are in place. And I know it's hypocritical. It is, and I know that it's maybe a bit unfair, and it's goes against the way things are trending. But like the rules are there.
Yeah.
I get that it's casual. I get that it's ingrained. And look, I get paid by bet. We get paid if we do DraftKings articles all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, that's just they DraftKings gives us incentives, and so like, I get it. It's the bottom line is though, the league isn't going to change, hypocritical or not. There's tons of other hypocritical stuff that they do as well,
Sure.
and
This,
I mean, they do. Look, we're learning about them all the time,
yeah.
right? Look at the field in Carolina. That whole situation, that's a hypocritical situation as well. So, is it unfair? Maybe. That's debatable, but it's
there.
It happened. It's there.
I'm not even like talking about the unfairness of it. I'm just saying, like, just because it is that casual, I'm saying like you're going to keep seeing it more and more, and that's why teams really need to hammer this home.
I'm not saying you're saying that's unfair. I'm
no,
saying
I know. But like,
consensus.
The fan base is very, very upset about it, and I
Sure.
can't blame them. I really can.
Let me tell you a story. I was talking to a Lions employee months ago. I think it was during the season, so likely before any of this even happened. They were telling me how strict some of these gambling rules for them were, and they told me they could not even step in a sports book.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like that could get you fired. Just stepping in a sports book, just being seen in a sports book as an NFL employee can get you fired.
Yeah.
And so that's how hard of a line they're trying to draw in the NFL, and that's also how easy it is to slip up. But now this is a wake up call. Now this is you're seeing these players in the building, these employees in the Lions building are literally seeing people pack up their boxes, pack up their lockers, and leave. And that needs to be ingrained in their head now. Like, I know it's easy to slip up. I know it's not fair. I know I know you want to bet on sports games that have nothing to do with how you do your job, but you can't do it. You can't do it. And so everyone should have already had this message drilled into their head, but now it's got to be there because the Lions can't make stupid mistakes like this when they're in a position with everything to lose. If you're a 3-14 team and you suck, great. This is a fun headline they can throw on the Tonight Show and make jokes about. You're a real freaking team now. You cannot make these mistakes. If we're going to hold Sheila in high regard, if we're going to hold Brad in high regard, if we're going to hold Dan in high regard, you cannot afford mistakes like this. So this better be the last damn time I hear about it.
Yeah. The one last thing I'll say is I feel bad for two other Lions. First off, we haven't even mentioned Stanley Berryhill yet being suspended 6 games as well. And for an undrafted, I believe he was an undrafted rookie free agent last year. So this is going to be really hard for him to make the roster or practice squad unless the Lions really want to. And then I just feel bad for Quintez Cephas at this point. Like, he's absolutely made a mistake. He knows he shouldn't have made that mistake, but this probably shuts the door on his career.
Yeah.
All over a couple bets he placed.
Yeah. Look for the XFL, looks for the UFL at this point. But yeah, that's unfortunately you get made an example of at this point when the NFL is really trying to separate themselves from gambling while also, locking arm in arm with them.
Huge amount of money from them. Yeah.
Like that's how it goes right now. And we'll have more about this story, obviously on the website. I'm sure this isn't the last we're going to be talking about it on a podcast or anything as well. But we're going to close the quick emergency podcast now. We'll continue talking with our live audience in a minute. But thanks to Chris, thanks to Eric for joining us on short notice. Hopefully, better news is on the horizon. We do have the NFL draft in 6 days. Hopefully, that will distract us from some of this stuff. But until then, thank you all for listening. It's Chaos. Be kind.